Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another session with Dashboard Gear on various business intelligence and reporting tips and techniques. Today, we're going to have just a short little presentation, but it's a question I get asked a lot at Dashboard Gear, and that is, how do you connect to a cube through Power BI? So before I get started in that exactly, I want to jump over here to Excel. Now, in past sessions, we've covered how you can connect Excel to data inside of a cube. So I can use a pivot table, connect up, and navigate through the data. Now, Excel works fine for things that you want to do for interactive analytics for yourself and so forth. And as we covered previously, cubes are really ideal for KPIs and analytics that are more ad hoc. Now, and Excel is good for that. But where Excel falls down is, what if I want to share this data with others? So Microsoft has a tool that's available called Power BI. So here's an example of one that I brought up on top of our activity management, which is like a project tracking software within Infor. I brought up a dashboard that I created inside Power BI. Now, Power BI has two different aspects to it. There is a web-based component, which is what you're seeing here. And this is where once you create content, you publish it to this web-based, and you can share it with other people in your organization, or even outside of your organization for that matter, and see the data. Now, today we're not going to go over the scope of all the different things you would do within this, and we'll cover that in a future topic. But today what I want to talk about is the second component, which is a desktop tool that is free. So if you go to PowerBI.com, you can download the desktop tool and use that with your data. Now, the beautiful thing about Power BI is that you can connect to a myriad of data sources, one of them being cubes. And so I'm almost embarrassed to show you how easy it is to connect to a cube, but I get this a lot of, A, can it connect to a cube? And then B, how do you do it? Well, I opened up Power BI. Now, it might show differently on your screen depending on how you're doing the version that you have or how you've launched it, but I just launched it from a default mode. So I'm going to say get data. And what's going to happen is it's going to go out there and look at the data sources that are available. Now, it's going to bring up the list here. Now, you're going to notice that one of the options that's listed here is SQL Server Analysis Services Database. Now, I'm not going to cover other cube types, but if you go further down the list, you'll see things like Essbase and some other cubes. Today, I'm just going to cover SQL Server Analysis Services. But if you click that, you can say connect, and what it will do is it will give you another prompt that, depending on your data source on your machine, it's going to look for the OLADB connector that's associated with analysis services. So what's going to happen here in a minute is it's going to pop up another connection dialog. Let's take a second to come into play here. And there we go. And then what we'll do is we'll put in our server name. And so I'm going to put in my laptop here that I've got, my Surface Book 2. And you can put in a database. Now, the next thing I want to focus on is down here, and this is where some of the confusion comes in. Typically, when people are working with Power BI, they think of it in terms of taking your data and shipping it up to the Power BI service. And that's called importing the data. The nice thing about cubes is they also give you an option to connect live. The difference between those two is the import will take your data and structure of that data and ship it up to the Power BI server or embed it inside of this Power BI desktop app. Connect Live will leave the structure and the data of that on your analysis services. So what I find for cubes, most enterprises, the ideal selection is this Connect Live. You don't have to worry about moving any data. It's just always updated. Whenever you've updated your cube, it's there. So I use Connect Live. If I'd say okay, what it's then going to do is say, what are the databases that are available on that server that I selected? So in my case, I'll just pick that same one I just showed you in the Excel, which is our general ledger summary cube. And it gives you a little verbiage here of the different measures that are available in there. But I'm going to say okay. Then what's going to happen is over here on the right, depending on how you've structured your Power BI here, again, it might look a little different, but by default, this is the way it looks. And just like we had in Excel, on the right-hand side, we have our measures and we have all of our dimensions. Now, like I said, I won't get into the specifics of Power BI, but if I take a measure and I add that in and I take and I'm going to switch these visualizations in Power BI, you can switch it. I'll switch it to a table mode. So I could say something like, show me the companies, show me the years for those companies. And then maybe I want to move my amount down. I now have a view in Power BI using a table that's showing me all my companies, my years, my amounts, and so forth. So it is now connected to a cube. And I could, switch this to any of the visualizations. This will be a nice ugly one here, but using all the standard Power BI functionality. When you're happy with this, you save it, publish it up to the web service, and it's now shared. And you too then can have, pretty looking dashboards and graphs and so forth, just using the native Power BI. So it's that simple. Now, when you do publish it to the web for the desktop or from the desktop, what you're going to want to do in the web service is set up what's called a gateway service. So we'll cover that in another session, but basically you need a way for the web service to talk back to your network to get the data. So when we're in the desktop, that isn't an issue. So if you want to create a desktop app and have everyone in your organization or the people in your group just use the desktop and open it up, you can do that without any issues at all. And that works just like Excel. Everyone in your organization can see it. But if you do publish it up to the web or the cloud, if you prefer that terminology, when it's up in the cloud, it needs to poke a hole back to your network. And so to get the data, and that's called a gateway service. And so what you do is you just set up your analysis services server on that gateway service, and it will then allow you to get the data and so forth, just like you're used to doing there. So that is pretty much all that I wanted to kind of go through today with our session. We're going to take a week off next week. I may record something ahead of time and put that out there for you next week. Otherwise, I'm going to be taking a day off next week. So with that, we'll talk to you again in 2 weeks, unless I record something for you ad hoc in between. But thank you for joining us. And if you do have any suggestions or questions, please feel free to send them to info@dashboardgear.com. Thank you.